Home ownership is a blessing for some and liability for others. In the previous episodes of the Rent versus Own series, we spoke about the financial comparison. What is the difference between renting and owning in our pocket? In this episode, we're going to put the spreadsheets aside and we're going to talk about the benefits between the two approaches so you can make an informed decision based on the full picture. Howdy everyone, my name is Oreo Cannon. I am a licensed realtor in Austin, Texas, a computer engineer, and I'm still salty about Game of Thrones and I just can't bring myself to watch this new show, House of the Dragon. In the previous episodes of the Rent vs. Own series, we covered the financial comparison. So make sure you understand this part before moving forward with this video that is going to discuss your personal preferences. I'm assuming that you understand the financial incentives for either of the approaches, and now I want to discuss about the benefits of either approach, compare them so we can understand what applies better for your individual situation. So starting the comparison between rent and own, I'm going to talk about flexibility compared to stability. So when we rent a place, we have a lot of flexibility. We can move into the place and decide, I don't like this apartment. I don't like this neighborhood. This place is too small for me. It's too big for me. I want to get a new position in a different state and move there. It is so much easier to do while we are renting a place because moving away doesn't cost all that much. Maybe we break the lease and we should make sure that we understand what the lease breaking fee is, but it's not like liquidating an asset, dealing with negotiation and listing and staging and all those type of things that come with real estate when we need to move away and we want to liquidate. On the other hand, the stability of owning a place can be a huge factor for families or even individuals. Let's just say that we have children and they're going to a specific school. Maybe we want to own the place so we won't need to deal with the landlord coming 1 month and saying, hey, my niece is moving to town, I need you guys out of here. Maybe we don't want to deal with the landlord just arbitrarily increasing the rent because they feel like it. When we own a place, we don't deal with any of it. We have a lot of stability that comes with the property. The next item is volatility between housing expenses and monthly payments. When we rent a place, we don't have any type of volatility with expenses. If the HVAC breaks down, the landlord is going to fix it. And if something happens to the roof, the landlord is going to fix it. And if something happens to the fridge, the landlord is going to fix it. We don't need to deal with these things because we are paying for housing and it's somebody else's problem. However, when we own a house, we don't need to deal with any type of volatility of monthly payments. If you took a mortgage in the US, typically it's a fixed interest, meaning that the monthly payment is static. So even now, when the interest rate is shooting through the roof, people with mortgages, they don't really care because the interest payment is fixed. So we don't need to deal with the added costs. The people who rent, they might need to deal with increased rents because their landlords would like to get better return on their investment. I know that some people are super stressed when it's time to renew their lease, so that's another big benefit for owning a house. Next in line is liquidity and diversity compared to equity. So when we rent a place, we took our capital and we invested somewhere, hopefully. Maybe we did it in bonds, maybe we did it in index funds, maybe we've done it in crypto, and maybe we just put it in a high-yielding savings account. Maybe we diversified our portfolio across multiple streams of investments. The main thing is that our money can be liquidated with relative ease if we so choose. We can decide how to deploy our capital, which is a huge benefit. On the other hand, when we own a house, we put our capital inside a property, and now there is a forced saving situation because every month we are paying the mortgage, we are reducing our principal. It makes you be more financial responsible. And it's important to remember that as you are building equity, because you're leveraging your money, it might shoot up in value if the market works in your favor. So talking about markets and favors, let's talk about the housing market, which is either a pro or a con depending on your perspective. So when you rent a place, you have no binding between yourself and the housing market. If you rent a place and now the property values dropped, you don't care. The property's values drop. You just pay the rent. But on the other hand, if the property values keep increasing, then you don't really have the skin in the game, and it can be very painful if you want to buy the place later, which brings me to owning a place. If you own a house, you bound yourself into your housing market, which might be a good or bad thing depending on your perception and your own perspective. If you are living in a city that has a very strong trajectory of growth, then maybe being binded into the housing market is a good thing. If you're not sure about the housing market and you think it's going to collapse, maybe binding yourself to the market is a bad thing. But the main thing is, if you stay in that town, being bound with the market is probably not the worst thing in the world, because if it shoots up in value, if you want to upgrade your house, you only need to account for the difference between the two properties. If the entire region shot up in value, you shot up in value too. Last but not least is the feel factor, the emotional factor. And this is not something negligible. So if you rent a house, you don't have any type of debt stress or mortgage stress. For some people, the mere thought of owing money to somebody is just stressful for them. They don't care that they have equity in the house against the principal that they owe. It's just stressful to them to know that they owe something to somebody. And maybe renting can be a better solution for them until they have enough money to buy, if they even want to buy a place. Other people will be like, hey, I don't care. Instead of putting my money into this thing, I'll put the bank's money, and that's fine. So it really depends on your feel and how are you with taking debt. Is it a good or a bad thing? Up to you. On the other hand, when you own a house, you have a different feeling of you owning your own home. A lot of people will report that. They will say, hey, when I own the property, it's my own home. I can put some sweat equity into the home. I can renovate it and make it my own and feel good about it because I know it's mine. I know nobody is going to tell me to move away until I decide to do it on my own. I am not saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying you need to factor that in when you're trying to make a decision. All right, so this pretty much wraps it up for the things that are different between owning and renting a place. You need to apply all of these parameters and the financial comparison we have done earlier. For example, let's say that I am a young professional moving into a new city, and I don't know if I'm going to stay here for long, and I don't know if I want to keep this job, and I don't know that I have friends here, or whatever. And I'm looking at the chart and I see that buying the property will make more sense if I'm going to stay here for the next 5 years, and I don't know that it is going to happen. Maybe renting for a while until I figure out what's the next move is the better solution for me. Or another example, let's say we are a family, and let's say that we want to send our kids to schools, and we're really stressed about anybody telling us to move and us not being able to go to the same school districts, and we look at the financial calculators and we're seeing that owning a place will actually yield additional $5,000 a year, then maybe it's the better solution for us. I don't know. There is no right or wrong here. It's all about the math, your assumptions, and your preferences combined together, and then you can understand what is the right decision for you. All right, this pretty much sums up the rent versus own series. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments, was it helpful? Do you rent? Do you own? What do you think that I missed? Is there anything else that we need to factor in when we're making an informed decision? Also, let me know, what are the other topics that I can cover in order to help you and help others understand better finance and real estate. Last but not least, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We have shorts, we have funny stuff, we have me making fun of properties and weird design choices, and I'll see you on the next episode. I paused the video before, I don't even know when. I just finished recording the entire thing and it didn't record anything. You would think that after doing it in the last video, I would learn, but apparently I'm a monkey, so...